has been the problem. Even right now, they're without a chair, I believe. And how many people know that? They've been struggling with complaints from the community, and they're leaderless. And how do they get to the work that actually gets done when they can't even? Now this is 18 months later, and they still don't have a chairperson. So you wonder what's really going on in that realm. And the only reason I know about it is because I'm part of the Media Echo Center. Signal Cleveland has put out a great article about it, and I give them kudos because they are one of the few platforms that are actually looking at things that the politicians and the government is doing, and they brought that to our attention. But again, I think the power in that committee is they get to actually do things that will reprimand, that will enlighten. Got some training parameters there. They got some juice. They can do some things. So whether they'll do it or not is not the problem. I think we have a honestly, Vince, I think we have a cultural problem going on here, not just in Cleveland, but just across the country. And we can get into that as much as you want, but culturally, we need to change our not only the Black community, but the entire country's the culture needs to change. And I'm not saying it needs to go back to when the good old days when we were growing up, but it needs to get back to some very basic things. And one of the basic things that I think it needs to get back to is just plain old dignity and respect. Uh, Somehow or another, we have lost our dignity. I won't get on my soapbox here. I'll let you respond.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct about that. And culture is something that we talk about a lot on this show because culture affects the way people interact with each other. One of our elders in the community is Paul Hill Jr., and he's essentially a spokesperson for the National Rites of Passage Institute, Nairobi. You also have Quad David Whitaker, Dr. Whitaker, who has been instrumental in rites of passage programs at Kent State University, West Virginia University. And at a point, both of them, I believe, were involved in rites of passage programs in the Cleveland schools. But they've done away with rites of passage in the Cleveland schools. But the thing about rites of passage is that it gives young people an understanding
Yes.
of what their responsibilities are as a person, what their responsibilities are in the family, what their responsibilities are as a male or a female. And part of this cultural education is the idea of having respect for oneself and having respect for others.
Hmm.
And as you look at things in your environment, you see a disparity when it comes to respect.
Yes.
Young people don't respect their elders. Elders don't respect the young people. And it's this lack of respect that creates the dysfunction that results in a young person taking from an older person, victimizing them in crime, those kinds of things.
Well,
We
Vince,
have to get back to the nucleus of our society, and that is the family. It is a man and a woman raising children. And I know,
I know
folks,
you about to stir the pot up here, Vince.
I'm stirring up the pot because, there's the political correctness and
Mhm.
there's all the different agendas that go on. But when you look at things organically,
Yes.
the basis of civilization was a man and a woman creating children
Mhm.
who duplicated the process, and life moves forward. And when you deviate from that, then you have to have something unnatural in the process.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
I totally agree. And I keep it simple. I say it comes down to the plumbing. But even beside that, you hit it so well in terms of respect. And I think it starts with respect for ourselves, as you said. I think people have lost that respect for themselves, and the proof is in the pudding. All you got to do is walk down the street. All you got to do is walk into a store or just drive. I got to give you two examples. I'm driving down Chester, and I'm in the, Chester is 6 lanes, and I'm in the far right lane, which is supposedly the slow. Let me educate people. The slow lane is the right lane, the middle lane is the cruise lane, and then the left lane, far left lane, is the fast lane. And if you're on a freeway and you only have 2 lanes, there is the cruise lane and the fast lane. There's I just gave people a nugget so we can get this transportation thing together. But anyway, I'm driving down Chester. I'm in the slow lane. I'm cruising. I'm in my retirement mode. And this car pulls up behind me and they're trying to get me to go faster. And I'm looking and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, well, there's 2 other lanes. Go around. You know, this person pulls around me and flips me off. And then I guess the turn that they were getting ready to make was coming up. They got right back behind me and tried to push me to go faster. That is a total lack of respect. It's like, you're so important. I got to do what I got to do to get where I got to go and disrespect you. Where did we lose our respect?
Yeah, and then the other thing is you in the slow lane. That's where you're supposed to be. I mean, what do you want me to do? Pull off the road so that you can get to where you're going faster because you don't want to use the correct lane because you want to pass somebody?
Hey,
It's
Vince,
ironic.
Vince, here's the part that really is gonna blow your mind. When the person pulled up and flipped me off, it was a middle class Caucasian woman. It blew my mind. It's like, first of all, where did she get the nerve? To this, she don't know if I'm an angry black man. She don't know, but it's okay because I'm in retirement mode. So I just kept on cruising.
Yeah. Well, you might find this amusing, Ryan, but within the past couple of weeks, I wrote a new song,
Oh, okay.
and the name of the song is "Stay in Your Lane."
I love it already.
Yes, I want to shift gears and come back to the CAC issue. I
Okay.
was corresponding with someone, and I needed to focus on what I was doing, but I want to open that conversation again because it is really, really important that all parties involved in the scenario understand what's at stake. We talked about the police oversight, civilian review board, so forth and so on. And we know that public safety is an important issue, but it's not the only issue. And it's really tragic to me that we spend so much time focused on public safety and not enough time focused on art. A number of years ago, some people got together and decided that we could create funding to support art and culture in Cuyahoga County. And the idea was we'll create a tax for it, and that tax was a cigarette tax. So, cigarette taxes have been instrumental in funding an entity called Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. They get the funds, and then they pass these funds out to nonprofit organizations. Some of those cultural nonprofits include the Cleveland Museum of Art, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum, the Museum of Contemporary Art, and the Cleveland Orchestra. And these entities get several $1,000s. The information is out there. I believe they published it on IdeaStream a few weeks back when CAC had a meeting, and IdeaStream covered the meeting. So if you're interested in finding out who's getting what, the numbers are all there. But when you look at those numbers, and I wish I had them in front of me so I could be accurate when I talk about them, but you have organizations like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that are getting in excess of $500,000 in funding from CAC. There's a finite number of organizations that are smaller that are receiving operating funding and project funding, but those amounts are not nearly what those are. And then, kind of as an afterthought, they decided to give some funding to individual artists. Um, you have maybe $10 million last year that were to be given out. And out of that $10 million to be given out, only 400,000 was assigned to individual artists. And for some reason, those funds were not given to the individual artists within the past year. So that is the crux of a controversy that is fueling some very heated debates on the board of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture. And that is one of the reasons that one of your reporters, Bruce Sisevsky, was brought in, and he has been monitoring the situation. And so he's gone really in depth into describing that situation. I'm going to be really transparent and let our listening and viewing audience know that I serve on the board of the Assembly for the Arts, which is an artist advocacy group. And we are doing what we can to advocate for individual artists. My personal feeling, and I'm saying this irrespective of my position on the board, but my personal feeling is that we need to find ways to appropriate more funds to individual artists because we are an important part of the infrastructure. And we're a really significant part of the creative economy of Cuyahoga County. So there's a lot more that can be said about that, but I just want to know that as someone who participated on the Support for Artists Planning team, which is a team that was brought together that included several artists of color to make recommendations to the Board of CAC to improve the situation, because at a point we realized that when it came to funding individual artists, we were receiving such a small portion of those grants. There were 161 Creative Workforce Fellowship awards that were given out, and only 9% of those 161 grants went to artists of color. Now, this was something that I came up with as we were going through the Support for Artists Planning team process. And then there was a little pushback on it, but I realized that a lot of those dollars, those tax dollars from smoking cigarettes were coming from Black pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the numbers, it was disproportionate in terms of the dollars that were coming back to Black pockets.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and there's a lack of equity in that scenario. Now, it is what it is. The numbers are the numbers. The numbers are difficult to find now. So you really have to do some real research to dig in to figure out what the actual numbers are. And perhaps they're not as much as they were before in terms of what Black dollars are in this. Because think about it. Over the past few years, you've had inflation, you've had unemployment, you've had people who can't smoke as much as they used to smoke because cigarettes cost too much and they can't afford them. Another thing that the board is wrestling with is the fact that the revenues are dwindling because everybody is smoking less. Mm-hmm. So this is something that really needs to be figured out. And my thought is that we shouldn't depend solely on someone destroying their body to fund art and culture. I think that there should be state funds appropriated, not on a just, one and done, here, we'll give you some money, do what you can with it. But there should be budgetary items for the city administration, for the county administration, for the state administration that go to art and culture. That's just an idea. I think that would make things a lot more fair. What do you think?
Wow, you touched on so many areas that, first of all, let me first say that something's broke here. And I get there's two sides to this equation. From what I've read with what Bruce has put out for the Cleveland Observer, is that the organizations that were funded, it was based on their capacity. And what that means is, were they able to handle that size, that amount of money within their capacity to utilize it effectively? So we, and at the Cleveland Observer, we have a full finance portion of our platform that teaches how to do entrepreneurship, budgeting, the whole bit. So we need to be prepared. We need to make sure that we have all our ducks in order as artists, as platforms, so that they cannot refuse to give us the money. So they don't have an excuse. And I get the other side. The other side is, hey, this money doesn't really get to the artists. It goes to an organization, an institution, kind of like the land, the development situation here in Cleveland. It doesn't really filter down to the community. So the first part is we need to be prepared. The second part is once you're prepared, you have to have a way of showing impact. What you did with those dollars made a difference. So then we move on to what you talked about. Well, how should it be funded? That is a great. I like the fact that you said let's earmark some money for local artists on a yearly part of the annual budget. Or I mean, if cigarettes are dwindling down, and all of a sudden we have this new marijuana law, why not attach it to the marijuana? So I mean, there's resources out here. I guess is what I'm trying to say. We just need to first of all get a board that understands what the situation is and is empathetic to what the situation is, and then put in a strategic plan, implement that strategic plan, and let's get this money down to the artists.
Yeah, well, for legal reasons, the city has not been able to provide direct support to individual artists. That was something else that came out of the support for artists planning team meetings. I was asking questions of someone, I'm not going to mention a name, but I asked someone that had a position within the administration that was related to culture. And what I was told was, well, no, the city does not provide any direct support to artists. Okay, and there may be legal reasons for that, but when you look at the value of what artists do for the city, and you look at all this money going towards police officers who basically, investigate crimes and lock people up, and when you look at the whole correctional paradigm, there's no correction that happens as a result of that. What happens is you harden criminals, and when they get back on the streets, they wreak more havoc.
Because while they were incarcerated, they found a better way to do their craft.
Yeah.
But I get exactly what you're saying, and I think the artist piece of it is how do you filter that down to the artist? So we need platforms or we need organizations that are going to be accountable to getting that money down to the artist. We are getting ready to branch off into what we call the Cleveland Observer Institute. We don't have archives of our music, of our dance, of our entertainment, in specific to Cleveland and really across the nation. We don't have a media library of some kind or archive of some kind. So why not utilize the local artists who want to do this kind of thing to build that kind of an archive? Why not use the local artists to basically do? Look at this. Cleveland at one time, I would say between the 60s, 70s, 80s, just before the disco period, there were clubs galore in Cleveland. I don't care what neighborhood you went to, they had two or three clubs that was available for people to, and people want to be entertained. If you don't believe people want to be entertained, let's look at social media. So if people want to be entertained and you want to get people back to actually socializing and not on the technology socialize, virtual socializing, uh, why not bring in, try to rebuild that whole entertainment infrastructure like it used to be? That money could be used to rebuild an infrastructure of entertainment utilized and created by entertainers, by artists.
Yes, absolutely. Um, we do have a few archival entities, so I don't want to overlook the fact that you have the Artist Archives African Americans at the Western Reserve Historical Society. So, I mean, I'm going to shout out Sister Regina Williams because she is doing some significant things over
Mhm,
there. But
mhm,
to your point, I think we need more of that. I'm a photographer.
mhm.
I have a friend named Randy Norvis who is a photographer. Michael Lilly is a photographer. I don't know if you see Sam Norton's posts on
Oh yeah,
Facebook, but
yeah.
he's a photographer.
Mhm.
So if you look at all of us photographers, we have endless documentation of things that have happened in Cleveland. And yes, I agree wholeheartedly. There should be a way that we can plug what we do in. When you look at the archives of the Western Reserve Historical Society, a lot of it does not pertain to us. And then you look at museums, it's the same thing. I think there's a higher level of sensitivity now because we keep raising this issue. But look at the Museum of Contemporary Art.
Mhm,
Last year, I wrote an article about a sister who was actually the first Black curator
mhm.
of a museum that had been in existence for 50 years.
And we're
So
talking 2023.
yeah, if you just look at how we've been excluded from this realm for so long, and one of the things that she mentioned was that there was an anti-black paradigm in existence.
Mm.
And so one thing that happened as a direct result of her expressing these things is that they decided to do an exhibition at Mocha that basically was about racism. Um, and then there was an incident that kind of brought all this to the forefront because Mocha wanted to use an artist that had art that was really inflammatory, triggering, traumatic, for Black folk. And when somebody spoke up about whether or not we should have this exhibition, they were like, oh, they just tried to gloss over it. But as a result of that incident, they ended up doing an exhibition that ended up at Mocha. It was also at a space on um, East 105th Street over there where Third Space Action Lab is.
Correct.
And then there was part of the exhibition that was at Larchmere Arts. And the reason that it was at Larchmere Arts, and this was a partnership with the Museum of Contemporary Human uh, Art, which was Antoine Washington and another one of his collaborators. That exhibition ended up in Larchmere Arts or at Larchmere Arts simply because of some racism that occurred within their effort to do this exhibition.
Mhm.
So I'm saying all that to say that there are issues in the art world and they need to be addressed. There needs to be more inclusion. There needs to be more diversity. We should be able to go to the Cleveland Museum of Art and see Cleveland artists.
Mhm.
And we should be able to go to the Cleveland Museum of Art and see Black artists. We have
So
some
much,
phenomenal
so
artists
much.
in this
Yes,
town.
yes.
I mean, you got Jerome White, you got Sister Sequoia, you've got Thomas Hudson, and I don't know if you know about Thomas Hudson.
No, no. Tell me about.
Thomas Hudson's art is so I'm at a loss to describe it, but he draws or paints or whatever technology or whatever method he uses, but he creates things that are so vivid that they actually look like photographs.
Oh wow.
And you look at it, you think it's a picture and it's a painting. That's how good his artwork is. And when I think of his art and others, we just have so many talented people in this community. And again, it's Cleveland Museum. It should have Cleveland folk in it.
Well,
I'm not saying you got to put up just us, but I'm just saying, I think that there should be a space. And from time to time, we do have exhibitions that might include Black artists, but rarely. And they used to do something called the May Show. and
Mm.
that the May show was an opportunity for local artists to have their work shown. But I don't know. There's
Yeah.
just a lack of the local presence of artists in our community. So yeah.
Well, they do the I call it the nickel dime, scenario where let's throw let's let's give them a little bone here, there, everywhere, and maybe they'll keep the natives in line, as
Hmm.
opposed to setting up a a structured platform for the exhibition of the artists that are in Cleveland or and across the nation for that matter. We're come on,
Yeah.
if we were, and that's the second thing that I think as a culture we need to change. Not only respect for ourselves and each other, but unity. There is and I believe this with all my heart, Vince, that if we unified on something really, really small, just one time in this near future, that would start the snowball effect. If we could unify on right, for example, this funding for artists, if everybody would pitch in and support the, the 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 legislation that's coming up, and then stay on top of this until it's established, and we get that win, we can start building our culture again. And that's what I think is the key to where we as Black individuals to step up and unify, regardless of what our agenda is, regardless of our situation. What's best for the collective should be the focus.
Yes. Something that kind of came into my headspace a few weeks ago. As a matter of fact, I remember now when I had the thought. We have a neighborhood leadership development institute,
Mhm,
NLDI.
mhm,
We have other entities that basically cultivate leadership for communities. And my thought when I realized that was that we should have artist leadership development.
yes, yes.
Because when you think about it,
Mhm,
artists many times are the catalysts for change. If you look at someone like Jada Hobson, for instance, who created a gallery out of a house that she had acquired,
yes, yeah,
you know, that's such a powerful thing when you look around and you see houses being torn down. But
yes.
someone like her could look at a house like that, see the value in it, transform it into something of an artistic and cultural value,
Yes.
and then have an impact on that space. If we replicated that in different neighborhoods,
Mhm.
then we could provide a place for the artistic expression of artists who have art that gets excluded from places like the Cleveland Museum of Art.
Without a doubt. You mean Jada has been, I mean, her vision and what she's accomplished from the ground up is visionary. You're right, with a little bit of leadership. Do you imagine where she could be now? And another person, Gwen Garth, she took a warehouse over on Superior and turned it into a gallery. And she's now, I believe, you're familiar with Gwen. She's now monthly going to be in the community with her. I think it's a truck or a van, art van, and she's going to
It's a
go around
bus.
the bus, and she's going to go around the community and provide a safe space for people to come, not only view her art, but talk about culture, talk about issues. And we're going to collaborate with her because I think it's a great. But these artists, they're creators. They're able to create things, vehicles like this, so that people can not only be entertained, but it's a sometimes healing, sometimes advocating. I mean, it's such a logical path between artists, entertainers, and media. I mean, come on, let's go back to Frederick Douglass. Let's go back to all of the media, all of the news platforms that really advocated for Black people to get to where they are today.
Yes. Well, Gwen is my art partner. As a matter of fact, we'll be collaborating on a Kwanzaa to take place. Yeah, I probably January 1st or December 31st, whatever day Kuumba is, that's the day that we'll do the Kwanzaa event. But
Hey, make
I'm
sure
very
you include us, Vince. Make sure you include the Cleveland Observer.
absolutely. And yes, because Gwen has had a seat at the table. Gwen is a former board member of Cuyahoga Arts and Culture.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
It,
as a
I saw
matter of
her
fact,
quote, but I didn't know she was a. Okay, all right, go ahead.
yeah, and she stepped down from the board just so that she could be more effective, in her mission. Gwen, as you know or may not know, but she spent some time at the university, so to speak,
Hmm.
and she's a recovering addict. But because she's been able to be so focused on art, it was art that saved her life.
Mm.
So, her motivation is to help as many people as she can. And you can see that she's doing it. She's not just talking about it. But, you talk about leadership, that's where the real leadership is. Going back to Jada and what Jada is doing, that's where real leadership is. And that is part of having young energy that looks at not why we can't do it, but how we can. That I think that's a consequence of us being up in age. You kind of get jaded, so to speak, by the past, and look at all the reasons that doors have been closed in your face, and you don't want to walk into another closed door, so you just keep it moving and you go another way. But this transformation of our society partly is happening because young people don't have the same baggage that we have
Mm.
as older people.
Yeah.
This is kind of unrelated, but related.
Hmm.
If you look at the continent of Africa right now,
Hmm.
and you look at places like Burkina Faso, where you have young people who are in leadership positions and have an ability to run the country, and they're saying we're not going to be beholden to colonialist influence anymore. So if you think that you're just going to plow this pipeline through our country and we're not going to get anything out of it, well, no, that's not going to happen. At some point you have to stand up. Now, the way the Europeans got over from the beginning was they would just buy and pay for the leadership so that they
Hmm.
could get their way. But then the younger leadership is coming around and they're saying, we're not for sale. If you want something, you have to negotiate, and you have to negotiate from a place of, fairness and equity, and not just you're going to take advantage of us because you always have. So to bring that back to what we're talking about, I'm seeing and witnessing conversations with young people where they're realizing that we need to do things differently. So
Hmm.
let's shift gears and talk about what we spoke on the other day, and that was issue 38. And
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
I'm bringing this up because I was privy to a conversation, a dialogue series at Third Space Action Lab. Shout out to Third Space for having intergenerational dialogue that brings younger folk and older folk together so that we can have conversations to understand how we're thinking, what's important to us, what's on our minds. It gives us an opportunity to demonstrate respect for each other. And I want to tell you that I so appreciate hearing from them and knowing how they see things. So with relation to issue 38, there was really some dismay expressed that the measure did not go through. For the benefit of the listening audience, can you tell us what issue 38 was supposed to accomplish and give us a little history of it?
Well, issue 38 would have allowed Cleveland residents, from the age 13 and over to help decide about 2% of the city budget and how it would be spent. Uh, this year, that amount would have been 14 million if the levy would have passed. And by the way, the levy did not pass by a small amount. I mean, less than 1,000 votes. So basically it have given the community residents the ability to spend or allocate city budget money, $14 million if it would have passed this year. Now, the background behind what they call PB CLE, which is the people that sponsored the legislation and got it to the voters, um, I would say 2 to 3 years ago. It might have been four. It might have been just before the pandemic. Um, there was a committee, and I was a part of that committee, to tell you the truth, that sat down and said, this allocation format is broken. I mean, they allocate when they say the city council and the mayor, they formulate this budget and they allocate money, and it's supposed to make the neighborhoods look better. It's supposed to provide city services, but we don't see a lot of change. I mean, our streets are still raggedy. We don't have curbs. Sidewalks are raggedy. I mean, we're not even talking about infrastructure in terms of. I mean, they finally did something with the gas lines, which was a federal project. But again, people recognized that things were not getting done. So this group decided, okay, let's try to go to the council and first see if we could get, basically when it comes down to council, you need 16 votes. I'm sorry, there's 17 on council, so you need 8 or 9 votes to get anything passed. So let's figure out if we can get 9 people to support us and get this potential legislation. Well, it wasn't legislation at that. This idea give it some legs. And they went to those people, and they actually got, I would say, 6 or 7. It might have been 6 council people to buy in, and the ball was rolling. And this group started to metastasize. I mean, it grew larger. It came. It started off with maybe 6 or 7, and it grew up to about 20, 25. And the label that was put on it was white people were running this thing, and that was not true. I was part of the original group, and to be honest with you, it was pretty diverse. If I were to put it in percentages, it was probably pretty even. Uh, so, and to put that label on it was a ploy. It was part of the misinformation that was given to us. The second thing that they decided was, okay, we're going to work with city council and try to get this on the budget. And slowly, as certain leadership in city council decided that they weren't going to support it, and this person decided from day one they weren't going to support it, eventually he got a hold of the rest of the council. And then when he saw that the council was not going to pass it, and the committee decided, okay, we can't get the council to cooperate. We're going to take this to the people. We're going to try to get this on the budget. I'm sorry, try to get this on the ballot. Um, then the other information started coming out. Well, you're going to lose city services, and you lose this and that. And come on, $14 million in a, what was it, $276 billion budget. Let's put that in an application here. I make $100,000 a year, and my child comes to me and says, "Well, Dad, I want to buy this $14,000 car." I'm going to tell him no, because it's going to cut off the gas. It's going to cut off the water. We won't have heat in the house. I won't be able to get you food. That was erroneous. Come on, we're talking about $14 million as compared to a $276 budget. But here's the win in all of this. Yes, the legislation got defeated, but it galvanized the community, and it put council on notice. Now their decisions are going to be watched. And guess what? They got to get voted back in.
Well, two, is it unreasonable for the people to have a say in how the money that they're bringing to the pot gets spent? And I know, again, and you explained to us why some of the council members push back on it, and it would take money away from public safety. But we started this show talking about how we need to create money for art. Perhaps that's one of the ways that we could create money to support, and it's our money coming back to us. I don't want to denigrate city council for what they have done or what they're doing or what they will do, because I'm still celebrating the fact that we have a chief strategist for art and culture in the city. Uh, we have $3.2 million that we're going to give out, and do it in a way that hopefully will be sustainable, so that it's not just money that's spent one time and doesn't perpetuate any programs that can continue to add value to the initial investment in our city. But I do think that we definitely need to look at doing things differently, and we got to change things up. And we do have to give power to the people. If this is supposed to be a democracy, then the people should have more of a say in what goes on, and let us decide what we want to spend the money that is appropriated to us to spend. You know, but I also realize at this point that there is pressure on council simply because of the numbers of people who live in the city, and idea that we need to reduce the number of council people.
Mhm, mhm.
So, I think part of this is kind of like a power struggle, so to speak, and folks want to maintain the power that they have, and some do it because they have good intentions, and some do it because they have ulterior motives. Sometimes it's related to ego or whatever, because not to cast dispersions on my folks in the political realm, but some of those egos, man, I mean, just think about it. I don't want to be too critical, but I'm looking at the way our state education system has been taken over, and who
Yeah,
did it.
Vince, you're stirring the pot here, man. Let me talk on two different. First of all, people would not want to be involved in the decision making process if the process was effective and efficient. And if you're not going to be, I mean, it's any other job. If at my job, if I'm not doing my job, my boss is going to fire me and get somebody else. And council needs to understand that it's not a political game here. We're talking about people's real lives. And again, if if they do the right thing, they don't have to worry about getting a vote. They don't have to worry about staying. But anyway, that's a whole nother realm. And I don't want to keep putting disparaging
Okay.
on the city council. Um, but I believe that um, the arts is a way, and I agree with you, to allocate money to the arts would probably relieve a lot of different things to help the city of Cleveland, and the city council has the power to do that.
Okay.
Mhm.
We are winding down on our broadcast time for WERE. We can continue our conversation, and we'll do that because I forgot to hit the go live button on StreamYard. So the folks who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, they missed the first 16 minutes of our broadcast today. But thankfully, thanks to technology, we can accommodate those who are watching online. So we're going to continue, because I got a few more things that I want to share with the audience
Mhm.
before we're gone for good today. I also want to thank everyone who has listened to us on AM 1490 WERE. We are pleased to be broadcast partners there, and we are pleased that we have an engineer, Tone Harley, who does such a fantastic job in making this broadcast possible. We could not do it without him. So thank you to him for tuning in and keeping us plugged in. With that, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace. All right, 12 o'clock on the nose, and we're going to continue our conversation with Ron Calhoun, publisher of the Cleveland Observer. I had to put that up on the screen, Ron, because some people may have seen TCO and they didn't know what TCO was. So we're just going to make it plain right here.
Mhm.
Ron Calhoun, the Cleveland Observer. Since we're at the top, tell folks how they can connect with the Cleveland Observer.
Oh, thank you again, and appreciate you having me as a guest. And Cleveland, you can go to Cle Observer, CLEobserver.com, and see all of our wonderful content. Be a part of the Cleveland Observer family. Maybe even get a subscription. Look at our YouTube channel, our social media channels. And our goal is to educate, empower, and be engaged with the community with information and news that will empower a positive change. Man, I gotta put that tag together and put it on the website.
Yeah, sounds like a great mission statement. And it has been recorded. So if you need to go back to it, it'll be on YouTube as soon as we finish this broadcast. And you also mentioned Signal Cleveland. Is there a relationship between that entity and you?
Yes, we've been over the past. Signal has been around for almost 2 years now, close to two. In Wow, it might be 2 years now. And they have a group called the Documenters. The Documenters are a group of individuals that are from the community that are getting paid a stipend to go to the community meetings, uh, ward meetings, council meetings, county meetings, and they come back and summarize, and then uh, Signal Cleveland will document that on their website. Well, we've been a partner with them since the inception, and we take that information. In fact, they send it to us prepared so that we can put it digitally and print wise to get it out to the community. What's going on in Cleveland? And it's been a tremendous tool. They've actually established a pretty good base of people within the Cleveland Observer that look forward to the documenters reports. I love them because it really puts, again, it's making a certain amount of accountability for our political leaders.
Well, yeah, it's necessary. I've been to a couple of county council meetings, and the county council meetings happen in the morning. How can you go to a meeting in the morning when most people who, could be at the meeting are at work? Same thing with CAC meetings. They
Well,
have them at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they'll have them downtown in a place where it's difficult to park. I mean, it's just not an easy fit. So to have someone from the documenters there to cover the meetings and to bring that information to the public, at least you can get a sense of what's going on. And the other thing about the documenters and publications like the Cleveland Observer is not having an agenda. I'm going to bring this up just to illustrate the point. Uh, some of us know about Winston Willis, some of us don't. Just so happens that I did a 4-minute documentary about Winston Willis. It's a film, actually. And one of the things that came up in the film is the fact that they took his empire. And when I say they, I'm saying someone in the Cleveland area that did not want him operating. Now, his empire was right between Cleveland Clinic and University Circle Incorporated. What happened, and I'm just putting it out there because this is what happened. They arrested him on some unfounded charges. They fabricated some charges. They arrested him. They took him to Chillicothe, and they kept him locked up for 10 days. And while he was gone, they tore down all of his buildings. Now, how is it that somebody could get arrested and then you have this massive demolition that happens in the middle of a city and it's not on the news? It wasn't on the Plain Dealer. It wasn't on 3, 5, or 8. Somebody has an agenda. This agenda has been in place for a long time. And the award-winning Cleveland Plain Dealer did absolutely nothing in coverage.
Well, there's not just the Plain Dealer. All of the local media at that time. We had the press at that time. We had the Sun Press. We had even the Calling Post. And before I go forward, Calling Post has stepped up their game. And I'm not trying to promote our competition, but they have stepped up their game. But at any rate, how could all that happen and not get to the people and not understand? And I don't know if you might not be quite as old as I am, but I remember the Scrumpty Dog, and I was young. I was probably in 18, 19 years old, but I remember going down on 105 and going to Vales and going to all of that was a robust entertainment complex for Winston. But again, That agenda has not changed since. If you look in Huff and Fairfax and Central right now, in particular in Huff, there is close to, I believe they said it was 86 million or some crazy number of development going on. All the development from 55th Street to 105 are $2,000 to $3,000 a month, one bedroom and efficiencies, and they're over what, 8 developments? That ain't about the community. Come on. Who can afford $2,500, $3,000 a month in a one-bedroom apartment? And they call it market rate apartment, market rate value. So that same thing, that same scenario that was going on back in the 70s is happening right now. And again, our culture has gotten so frustrated and so fed up with business as usual. They've kind of backed out. They've kind of said, "Hey, I can't do anything about it." They don't realize the power that they have. Accountability comes with your power.
Yes. Another development that I became aware of, and I've kind of watched the construction of it, is a building on East or on Chester near
Mhm.
East 105th Street called the Artisan.
Mhm.
It's probably close to 20 stories high. And something told me, see what this is about. So I went online the other night. I think the rents start somewhere close to $2,000 for a studio apartment.
Mhm.
They have 3 bedroom units in that place, $5,800 a month in
Wow.
rent. And then I looked at the floor plans, and the rooms, especially on the lower price levels, are tiny. I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking about a bedroom that you can barely fit a bed into. 10 by 12 is a small room for a bedroom.
Yes. Yes.
You
I
know,
mean, and
so
think about this now. You're talking about that one on 105 in Stokes. Well, it's Stokes and Chester, I guess. And then
yes.
you're talking about the original, where the Children's Museum was. That
Hmm.
one's been there for at least 4 or 5 years, I would say, maybe 10 years now.
Yeah.
You're talking about on Ansel at the top of Mount Sinai Hill, which is no
Hmm.
longer Mount Sinai. It was Huff, but now it's Mount Sinai Hill.
Hmm.
And then we're talking about the development on 90th. We're talking about the development on 73rd and Euclid that goes over to Carnegie. We're talking, I mean, there's so much, and all of it is in that market rate, 2,000 to $3,000 a month.
Right.
Well, you think about this. They're bridging downtown all the way down to University Circle, and they realize that they can't go east west anymore because they don't want to go into East Cleveland, not yet anyway. So they have to figure out north south. And you can see the agenda behind it, and the city talks about it all the time. Density. We need more density. Well, if you have amenities and you have retail, you'll get the density. So they kind of the cart before the horse. They want the density first, and we'll figure out the rest later on, which is typical Cleveland. Did you know? I think it was last week that Cleveland came up on a couple of different surveys. It is the fourth worst ran city in the country out of 50.
Fourth worst.
Fourth worst. What does that say? We're already the poorest. We already have the health disparities. Now they're coming out of a report that says Cleveland is one of the worst ran cities in the country.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit.
Okay.
And the reason that I want to do that is because I think we have to get to a place where we change a narrative that is designed to keep us in a place of victimhood. It doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge those realities. And it could be, the funds could be managed better. It could be that they do a better job, dealing with the infrastructural needs of the community and so forth and so on. But I think it's really important for us to find some light in the midst of the darkness. You
Yes,
know,
yes.
we have so many local treasures. You know, there's so many things that we can do to, and this is me being on the altruistic
Hmm.
soapbox, so to speak, because you
Hmm.
know you can see the glass is half full or half empty. You know, you mentioned the event down there at the Inner City Yacht Club about lakefront development, and you know I drive down the access road to the yacht club,
I know where you're going with this.
and I'm like, how long is it going to be before they repave that surface? I mean, Mayor Bibb, bruh,
but
do
but
you
that's a
ever?
state. That's a state. That road is state ran.
Well, if it's state, then
Yeah.
somebody needs to be standing on somebody's desk in Columbus and saying, "Hey, you know, we need to get this taken care of because it's, you know, it's just been like that for too long."
20
You
years at
know,
least. Took out a shock of mine. One of my shocks. Took it out.
yeah. I mean, you know, I don't want to tell on myself, but I use an alternate route sometimes just because I don't want to,
Want to go
you
down that
know,
street. I get it.
yeah,
But
you
but
know,
I get what you're saying about looking for some light. We try to publish information, what they call solutions journalism, where yeah, you bring up the topic, but at the same time, if there's somewhere else in the country or in the world that has a resolution, you report that also, so that people within the community can say, well, this is working over there. Let's try that. So I get it, and I have to really discipline myself to stay from that half empty cup and really move forward towards the half full cup because it can be frustrating, and I think a
yeah,
lot of people are just frustrated.
right. Well, think about the whole notion that Cleveland was the worst city in the world for Black women.
Mm.
That means that every Black woman who lives in Cleveland is losing somehow because their quality of life can't be what it should be or could be because they're in this place.
Mm.
Reality is that there are some sisters who are doing quite well. Okay. So it's not about doom and gloom for everyone,
Yes.
but we have to change this narrative so that we don't marinate in misery.
Mm.
That's kind of poetic, Ron. I think I'm gonna write
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you're going to write that one down.
Misery.
I
But
like
we,
that.
we have to do that, and we have to be the ones who tell the story. You know, I'm reminded of that whole idea that the tale of the lion and the hunter will always favor the hunter.
Mhm.
You know, how
Mhm.
long do we have to be the person on the receiving end of the bullet and telling that story? When do we get to a point where we're telling a story of how we put the hunter in a trap and had the hunter for dinner? You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
those are
Well,
those, and we have an ability to do that because we can tell the story with our song, we can tell the story with the painting, we can still tell the story with the photograph, we can tell the story in dance. You know,
mhm.
there's so many ways that we can express that idea so that it can be embraced and lift us out of this place of feeling, oh, you know, it's just so it's all messed up. You know, they're not doing this for us, they're not doing that for us. You know, we changed the paradigm by making changes that we can be accountable for. You know, like we talked earlier about respect. Okay, well, in your family, teach your child respect.
You're talking about the basics. You're talking
Yeah,
about going back to the basics. And come on, we're in a society right now that don't want to go back to the basics because I want
mhm,
to. I want to feel good. I'm going
yeah,
to do my thing because it makes me feel good. I don't care
right,
about you know
yes,
anybody else. And um, how do you conquer that mentality? And I think it starts with good leadership. And what is
yes,
good? What is good leadership? Integrity and consistency. Even if you don't know what you're doing, if you have good integrity and you stay consistent at the job, eventually you're going to figure it out.
yes.
Where is our leadership right now? Would you agree? I mean, what do you propose as a good leader?
Well, I want to embrace the idea that was brought to us by Financial Unity. And I just happen to know that Financial Unity is Angela's sales. Angela is one of the people in Cleveland who is doing things. She's the treasurer for Little Africa Food Co-op, and they're taking the idea of urban agriculture to the next level. They're out there feeding folks, and they're creating products that can bring benefit to folks who live in Cleveland. And this is the example that I'm talking about. We can sit around and wait for someone to do something for us, or we can elect to do for ourselves. That's what has to happen. We have to take control of our lives and responsibility for our lives. So you teach that child respect, you teach that child love for themselves, you teach that child who they are. I'm going to move towards closing up the show today, but I just want to come back to something that is really meaningful to me, and that is the idea of living in one's purpose. Many of us go through life not ever knowing what our real purpose in life is. Um, it should be a mission of ours to figure out what our purpose is. Because you can find out what your purpose is, you can assign yourself to it, and the universe will make you able to do what you were put here to do. This
Wow.
is exactly what we need to do. Angela, Ron wants to thank you.
Yes.
He
Yes.
put the comment in the private chat.
Oh.
We're gonna say publicly thank you for that, and I'll also be transparent and let everybody know that I'm on the board for the Cleveland Observer. This wasn't a shameless plug or anything like that, but I really believe in the work that the Cleveland Observer is doing, and it's important to bring that to the public. So this is how we're gonna part today. Figure out what your purpose in life is. There are ways that you can find out. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you have to spend some time going within. Meditation is one of those tools. So sometimes you just got to be still with yourself, somewhere quiet.
10
Uh,
seconds, Vince. Just 10 seconds is all I need.
Go ahead.
If you are breathing, you have purpose. And I use my 5 by 5 by 5. 5 minutes of prayer, 5 minutes of reading, and 5 minutes of memorization. I don't care what you use it for, whether it's spirituality, whether it's your job, do that and you'll find your purpose.
5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. That's 15 minutes. That's a quarter of an hour. It's a very small portion of a day. You know, recently I've taken to yoga, Ryan. The the day isn't complete if I didn't spend some time doing some yoga. This morning I did some yoga. I did a little qigong. But again, there are all kinds of tools that you can use to figure out who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. But above all else, you have to get to a place where you love yourself, because when you love yourself, you can love everyone else. And it's biblical, and I know everybody's not on the Christian tip, but they say all the time, God is love. So if you can be love, then what does that make you? The challenge is to be love. I want to take this time to thank Sister Angela for chiming in today, and my good friend Cinnamon Martinez for jumping in and making the comment. She's identified as Medusa Sunshine. So I'm going to say, hey, Medusa, thanks for joining us today. And for everyone else who tuned in at 1490, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Brother Ron, for stepping up, jumping in on the broadcast. We will do this again. We want to hear from our journalist partners from time to time. So, I like to have you on. I like to have Richard Andrews on. You said that the Call-In Post is stepping their game up. Maybe we'll have someone from the Call-In Post jump on, and we'll do a reporter's roundup, melanated.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, call me
Right here.
anytime. Don't wait 6 months though, Bruce. Vince. Don't wait 6 months, because it doesn't seem like 6 months, does it?
Yeah, the time kind of flew, but 2023 seems like a blur 2024 is going to be one heck of a year. We're going to see how that rolls out. All right. So, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your absolute best day. Peace.